you can never just trust Wikipedia because you'll get a sentence like this. Dan Beebe and his laissez-faire style of leadership are responsible for the fast decline in Big 12 sports competitiveness and bears all responsibility for single-handedly destroying the Big 12 from within. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. Never been here before. This is Jake with Master Football, pro football, college football, video game football, anything related to American football we discuss in the show right now. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'd really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. What this video is going to address is two questions. First question, what is Bob Bowlsby's legacy? Is Bob Bowlsby the guy who destroyed the Big 12? Is the guy who saved it? What is the perspective that you guys have in terms of his legacy going forward? Second question is, what does the Big 12 do from here? There's a lot of moving parts here. I'm going to get into that shortly here, but let's go through and see what happened recently. So this was yesterday. Bob Bowlsby to step away from role as Big 12 commissioner later this year from Dave Wilson and Heather Dinich of ESPN. Bob Bowlsby, who has led the Big 12 since 2012 and most recently steered it through the tumultuous announcement of the departures of Texas and Oklahoma, will step down from his role as commissioner later this year, he said Tuesday. Bowlsby, who turned 70 in January and has 3 years remaining on his contract, told ESPN he made the final decision within the past 2 weeks, but wanted to wait until after the Final Four to announce it. He said he knew he didn't want to extend the contract and spoke to conference leaders in an honest conversation about the difficulty of the last 2 years and the challenges that were before us. He called it a very collaborative and very mutual in the outcome. So, man, for those of you who don't know what was going on, obviously this last August, Oklahoma and Texas decided to leave the Big 12, and a lot of people are like, oh, the Big 12 is going to get absorbed by the American. What is Bob Bowlsby doing? He's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. He was dragged through a lot of those situations because he is the leader of that conference. I'm going to give my perspective on that in a second here. Let's continue on with the article. Bowlsby said there wasn't one particular incident that pushed him toward the move, but he cited conference realignment and the 2020 season that was ravaged by COVID-19 as events that took a particular toll. Last year, after Texas and Oklahoma, the league's two most prominent members, announced they were bolting for the SEC, Bowlsby steadied the league and engineered the additions of BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, who will join no later than the 2024-2025 academic year. Texas and Oklahoma have publicly said they will remain until their Big 12 rights expire in 2025. Continuing on, it also says here that Bowlsby was one of 4 members of the College Football Playoff Management Committee who authored the original plan for a 12th team included in June 2021, along with Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick, Mountain West Conference Commissioner Craig Thompson, and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. Following more than 8 months of meetings and debates, the CFP announced in mid-February it would remain at 4 for at least the next 4 years following an 8-3 vote, a decision Bowlsby had particularly voiced his frustrations over. The group is meeting in person in Irving, Texas later this month for its annual spring meeting, and Bowlsby said he doesn't expect to contribute much more to expansion discussions. The way it looks to me, I haven't talked with the CFP director, Bill Hancock, about this recently, but the way it looks is he's more probably another year away from going back to the drawing board on playoff structure. I could be wrong about that, but I think the resolution and process is going to be after I've retired. He also said here that Bowlsby said that Big 12 asked if he would consider a consulting arrangement after the new commissioner is hired. He said he would do whatever he could to help, but only if the new person wants such help. He said their vision is that I would stay until that person is actually in the office and in the seat, and he's willing to do that. Bowlsby was appointed commissioner in 2012 following defections from Nebraska, Missouri, Colorado, Texas A&M, and 2 other leagues. He added TCU West Virginia and was able to maintain Big 12's role as a Power 5 league and reinstated the league's conference title game in 2017. And finally, it says here, Bowlsby called the decision a mixed bag of emotions. So there was nothing that grew this channel and or created more havoc than the situation where Texas and Oklahoma were leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. Remember here, again, if we go back to this, what had happened before was there was a merger that created this whole situation here. Let's get into that merger. So before, again, remember how we kind of did this. So the Big 8 Conference was dissolved in 1996. The reason why was because the Big 8 Conference, which is kind of those like central, like Heartland conference teams, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri, all of them, the Big 8 Conference, joined the Southwest Conference. Southwest Conference is going to be, Baylor, Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech. All those teams decided to fuse together to form the Big 12 Conference. So the thing that did is, it says right here, in February 1994, the Big 8 and Southwest Conferences announced that the two leagues have reached an agreement to form a new conference. The 8 members of the Big 8 joined the Southwest Conference schools, Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, and Texas Tech, to form the Big 12 Conference the following year. And if you come over here and check the fact that it's actually, I think it's kind of funny that the 2 Oklahoma schools, all 4 Texas schools, and Colorado voted for the move to Irving, Texas, as the conference headquarters. And then you see here that Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, and Iowa State voted for Kansas City. Obviously, the northern teams wanted the northern part, but then Colorado's like, no, let's go back down to Texas. So that's how the league was formed, the current Big 12 that we see here. There was one commissioner, though, the commissioner before, who I don't want to say he gave him a mess, but he definitely didn't do any favors, and Bob Bowlsby did his best to hold the ship together in 2012 when he got the job. That's a guy by the name of Dan Beebe. So Dan Beebe, he, as much as people like to complain about Bob Bowlsby, listen to Dan Beebe's list of accomplishments here. Beebe had a stormy relationship at the Big 12 helm as the University of Nebraska moved to the Big 10, Colorado to the Pac-12, Texas A&M and Missouri to the SEC. The moves end a 100-plus year relationship of Missouri and Nebraska to the conference, as well as a 100-plus year rivalry of Texas A&M at the University of Texas. And now, again, what I actually think happened there was the fact that the reason why Missouri and Texas A&M left for the SEC was, 1, because they were invited, but 2, because they were like, you know what, dude, just screw Texas. Colorado joined Utah as well to join the Pac-12. They kind of went for the Pac-10 to the Pac-12. They added a couple of more mountain teams there. Again, they had Arizona State, who were kind of on an island out there in the Southwest. They added some teams that were reasonably close. And then you see here the fact that Nebraska, one of their flagship schools, joins the Big Ten. I mean, they didn't even have real rivalries with those teams. I mean, maybe Penn State or something like that, but Nebraska bailed, Colorado bailed, Texas A&M bailed, Missouri bailed, and then they were like, we got to get rid of this Dan Beebe guy. Now, remember here, Dan Beebe did add TCU and West Virginia to the conference, and again, it might have been in a situation where he, was like, let's just do what we can. Because remember, TCU was a part of the Southwest Conference, then went to the Mountain West, and then they ultimately went to the Big 12 when they were invited. West Virginia was a little bit of an interesting situation because they added West Virginia under the understanding that they were going to move that direction in terms of out and towards the East. It says right here, Big East member Louisville was interested in moving towards the Big 12, but later accepted an invitation to join the ACC. Back on Dan Beebe, I think this is funny. Just the fact that, first of all, you can never just trust Wikipedia, because you'll get a sentence like this. Dan Beebe and his laissez-faire style of leadership are responsible for the fast decline in Big 12 sports competitiveness and bears all responsibility for single-handedly destroying the Big 12 from within. Yeah, don't worry. That was totally objective and definitely needs to be on Wikipedia. It might be true, but you can definitely tell somebody wrote that. So Bob Bowlsby gets in about 2012 and just kind of keeps the ship calm, okay? They kind of looked at some things here and there, but a lot of people were really mad at Bob Bowlsby. They're like, man, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why don't you add Houston? Why don't you add BYU or something like that? There was a lot of things that he was trying to do. However, we must remember here that he had 2 big situations that were hurting him. And those 2 big situations were Oklahoma and Texas. Anytime he would suggest something, the 2 biggest voices in the room would be like, no. You're going to do what we want. So he was really hamstrung. A lot of people for the longest time felt like Bob Bowlsby was kind of, I don't want to say gutless, but, doesn't really have was not forward thinking. Could we really do anything? And I think it's because he always had to appeal to Oklahoma and Texas. Because remember, when those 2 teams left, a lot of people thought that the Big 12 would just dissolve. Baylor, Iowa State, Kansas just won a national championship. Everybody would just dissolve. Everything would just go away. So the fact that he was able to keep the conference together, and remember, he then eventually added Houston, because remember, Texas did not want Houston in, added Houston, expanded out west, added a partner out there in the eastern side of the country with Cincinnati, got a Florida footprint with UCF, and they got a western footprint with BYU. All those teams joined very, very, I don't want to say easily, but what he did and how quickly he moved, you just see what he's capable of. But again, remember, he was close to 70 years old. He's probably like, dude, I'm too old for this crap, man. But me personally, what I think happened with Bob Bowlsby, his legacy is the fact that he took over in 2012 when the Big 12 was down bad, okay? They tried to expand out east with West Virginia. It didn't really, they were kind of out there by themselves. It was kind of an awkward situation, but he couldn't really do anything. At the end of the day, when the chips were on the table, Oklahoma and Texas leave, he decides to keep the conference together, does what he can to rally other troops. So I think that should be his legacy. The fact that he was kind of dealt a crap sandwich. At the very end, he turned it around, but at the very end, he was like, dude, I'm too old for this crap. All right, the next situation here is what happens to the Big 12 in the future, because whoever this Big 12 commissioner is taking over, he's got certain situations here. Basically, every single team that had the ability to, flirt with another conference did. However, every single one of those teams was turned down. There was a strong rumor that Houston and TCU were being interested in joining the Pac-12, just so the Pac-12 could add a Texas footprint. That was shot down. There was rumors about Iowa State or Kansas joining the Big Ten. I think that was started by Iowa State and Kansas fans. There was rumors that Kansas State was going to join the Pac-12. There was rumors that Oklahoma State was going to join the SEC, but none of that happened. So we are currently here with these 12 teams. Again, the irate 8, as they were called, and then the 4 that were added. So what happens from here? I actually want to pull up a map here because I think that the next commissioner needs to solve this problem. So the Big 12, I think that the next commissioner needs to concentrate on 2 things. One, see if he can figure out some sort of streaming deal. I think the first conference that does that is going to have a leg up on every other conference. No more worrying about having a TV description. No more worrying about to have the sports package in order to get the game that you might not be able to see. If you have a streaming package or a streaming service, that would be an unbelievable, thing to do. However, I think every single conference is kind of playing chicken. Like, we want you to jump on it first to kind of see what can happen there. You don't want to be like the ACC stuck in your deal until 2030 or something like that. You want to have some flexibility and be able to maneuver around in the best thing forward because the technology changes so quickly. I do think, though, that the next Big 12 commissioner also has to solve this. In addition, like I said, to getting some sort of streaming deal, the next conference deal of what they're going to do, they need to solve this. So before, it was the irate 8 minus Houston, and then we had West Virginia out here. They were able to add a partner in Cincinnati, so at least they have some travel partner, and again, that saves a lot of expenses for a lot of those midweek games and regular conference things, but also adds a quality program. Cincinnati, West Virginia out there, they're reasonably close to Iowa State. It's not too far. UCF is on an island, and BYU is on an island. There have been some rumors about Boise State, my Boise State Broncos. There have been some rumors about Air Force, and there's been some rumors about Colorado State. There was also rumors about South Florida. I think that their best bet is to find something in terms of, even Memphis right here. Get UCF a regional partner, something that would help ease the travel restrictions. Get BYU a travel partner. Fill out somewhere this middle here. I think they're going to be a middle of the country conference, and that's what they're looking for. So we'll see what happens, man, because that's the next thing they're going to solve or they're trying to get through. So that's the next thing that this Big 12 commission needs to solve. Like I said, the streaming deal, some sort of thing like that. Also getting some more geographic sense in terms of the next teams that they add. So again, I asked you guys the same thing. What did you guys' perspective on Bob Bowlsby? What is his legacy? Ultimately, too, what do you think the next Big 12 commissioner needs to prioritize? Get in the comments, let me know. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I am out.